Well, welcome into our 2014 Wilmington Wildcats season review here. Kind of the first time we've actually done this, and pretty good year to decide to
Very
start
good
to do
year.
this. John and Dennis here with you, and we'll have Coach Reentz and a bunch of the players here as well in just a little bit. Kind of what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go through the season a little bit, give you a recap on some of the games from this year, and then we'll go around the room here and talk to a few of the guys and kind of get their thoughts on what has been a historical Wilmington Wildcats season. Of course, Dennis, they win the 3A state championship here just a week ago.
Seems
And
like forever.
yeah, it does. It seems like a while. And I'm sure for these guys, it's been kind of a roller coaster since that point. I know they've been all over the place at the Catbackers meetings and town hall and everywhere else. So it's been one of those weeks, I'm sure, for them that's been a lot of fun. But for everybody in town, it has been too. I mean, if you've been following Wilmington football, we've been looking for one of these for a long time. And finally got one in probably the most thrilling fashion. I was reading somewhere that the field goal to win a game at the state championships hasn't been done in 20 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
And that's a lot of state championship games. They're talking 8 classes. So it's just kind of a fitting end to everything here tonight. But first things first, when we get started off with this season, it opened up against Sandwich. The Indians had a new coach this year. They went to a spread offense after having run kind of that, wing T formation and kind of running the football forward and everything. They went to an all passing attack or mostly passing attack and did not go so well. Although week one, you saw some flashes from Sandwich and Wilmington trying to find their way through week one. And what was a pretty good game against Sandwich. Of course, it ended up being a 39-17 win for Wilmington, but still kind of an interesting approach in game one against Sandwich.
Yeah, I know with Sandwich, we really weren't sure what to expect defensively, and we knew they were pretty sure they were going to go to a spread offense, and I think coach had game plan for that and game plan well. We were able to stop them and have a really great game against them.
Yeah, and then from week one to week two, kind of the matchup of the year that everybody had been looking forward to was Coal City. And of course, it had gone from being at the end of the year back to the beginning of the year. Me personally, I'm glad that it wasn't week one again, which we've seen a couple of times. But week two is kind of interesting because both teams get a week. And back over at Coal City again after that weird weather situation last year. And then this year, Wilmington gets on a roll a little bit and ends up with a fairly easy win at Coal City, although a huge line for the Kohlers,
Yeah.
and ended up being to the semifinals of 4A. So a very good opponent week two.
Yeah, Coal City, they had a really big line, and they had all-state running back Jack Dibble, right? Jack, I think it is. Yep. So usually it's always a good matchup when you get Coal City on one side of the ball and Wilmington on the other, and we were able to take it to them.
So the week three is Lyle, and whenever it seems like for some odd reason, whenever we go to Lyle, something weird happens. This time around, though, a 34, I think it was 34-3. Yeah, it was 34-3 win for Wilmington against Lyle this year. And, I can't remember anything about that night except I think, wasn't that night when it was raining?
It was raining. Lyle scored first. They got a field goal, I think.
Yeah, they only scored 3 points.
Yeah,
so
they got the field goal, and we just, I know everybody's here, but we were playing like garbage. Garbage.
Well, the Lyle game is weird because you go up there, it's got stands on one side of the field. Yeah. It's a college stadium. It's kind of dead there. I mean, it's not really a great atmosphere. So to kind of get revved up to play there is an interesting situation every time you go to Lyle.
And then you get the rain, and that just brings the fans down even more. And it's cold and rainy. Yep. It's just a bad night overall, but the Cats were able to pull off a win.
So win in week three. Week four brings kind of a crosstown rivalry in Reed-Custer and a 34-7 win for Wilmington. Reed-Custer, again, with a coaching change this year. And while they did not win a lot of games this season, they were in a lot more games and kind of had some close battles with a few teams during the year and maybe kind of turning the corner over there at Reed-Custer. I know this year for sure was a big improvement from last year for them.
Yeah, with a new coach, any program takes a few years to get going, get rolling. So maybe in the next couple of years, we'll see how they get better.
And Westmont, too, was the next week. And, every time you think of Westmont, I think, oh, boy, especially if you got to drive all the way up there. And then it's the school I can never find. I think I almost took a wrong turn again this year trying to find that school. It tucked back in the middle of nowhere. But a 54-20 win in that week. And kind of another week where you see Wilmington just rolling a little bit, not really getting a whole lot of I'm trying to think of the right word here, but a lot of resistance from Westmont, and again that wide open spread offense, which actually later on when they played Monticello and some of these other teams kind of benefited Wilmington, the fact that they've seen that a few times during the year.
Yeah, it was if I remember right, we scored. They had a few turnovers at the beginning of the game, which really hurt them, put them behind, and we just kept at them, didn't let up.
And the closest game of the year came next, and that was Herscher, 21-18. Wilmington with a tight game with Herscher, and I think I went in thinking might be a little bit closer game than what we anticipated, but for sure when Herscher went to the playoffs and then knocked off Bishop McNamara in the first round, I think everybody kind of thought, wow, this they really have something going. And Herscher, of course, next week they played, was it Rockford Lutheran?
Yeah.
I think lost 56-7 or something like that. But a good first round win for Herscher in a program that they might be starting to move forward a little bit here.
Yeah, they'll be in our conference again next year, so it should be a good matchup next year. And but yeah, as for this year, it was a really close game. Came down to the end. Had an interception late in the game to seal it up, and
yeah, and
it's a good game.
Yeah, and Herscher, again, one of those teams where it kind of seems like they stick around, and if you let them stick around, that could be a problem toward the end of games. Next week 7, I believe, of the season was Seneca, a 40-20 win for Wilmington, and a Seneca team who the last couple of years kind of on the verge of making the playoffs and kind of teetering there a little bit and having some close losses. Seneca trying to revive that success that they had in the 90s. And not really getting over the hump yet, but getting closer.
I was at work that day, so I have no clue.
There you go. So week 8, we'll just move on. Peatone, 43-14 win for Wilmington in week 8 against Peatone. And again, another team that last year won first round of the playoffs. I want to say against, was it Pontiac?
Could have been.
They beat first week and beat them pretty big first week. Now they graduated, I think, 18 of their 21. 18 of their 22 starters, I think. So they had kind of rebuilt a little bit, but toward the end of the year, starting to play a little bit better. And in week 8, Wilmington with not too many problems with Peatone.
Yeah, it was a great game overall. Wildcats, good game plan and no problems.
And week 9 was the game everybody's looking forward to, which is Manteno. And that offense bringing back a whole bunch of new people, and of course their quarterback throwing for 3,000 some odd yards. And Manteno presented an interesting challenge to Wilmington in the fact that they hadn't really seen that kind of high-powered offense to that point of the year. We saw teams that spread it out a little bit and tried to run something like that. But that was, I think, the first moment really for everybody where they saw, wow, we shut down that offense and did so fairly well. 21-7 was the final score. And Wilmington gets enough points to get a win and go into the playoffs still undefeated. And Manteno, we saw them against Coal City in the quarterfinals of the playoffs. So those two teams that Wilmington beat advanced all the way to the quarterfinals, and the I-8 continued to be represented very well in the playoffs.
Yeah, just like you said, John, is the one time when fans looking at the game, watching it defensively, felt really secure about our pass defense. I know in years past, there's you hear rumblings and stuff about the pass defense, but this year, I mean, it really stepped up.
All right, and then when we go to playoff time, things got, we've got Paxton Buckley loaded in the first round, and it really kind of fell the right way for Wilmington for once. I know in the past, somebody would end up winning, I know Plano in the past when they won their state championships, I think one year they had home games the entire run of the playoffs. And for Wilmington, it seems like they finally got in that right mix of teams. We got Paxton Buckley Loda in the first round, a 49-7 winner. That's the game that you did when I was gone. And for what I could tell, I saw a little bit of the video later, just kind of overmatched as far as talent-wise goes.
Yeah, the Wildcats just plain outmatched them. There was no stopping the Wildcats for Paxton that night. So it was a really good team effort.
And the game for me that might, other than the state championship, might have been the most impressive was the trip to Monticello. And playing a high-powered offense who have been putting up points against everybody, against all these teams downstate, and to go in there and shut them out and win 40-0 on round 2 of the playoffs for me was kind of that point in the season where I go, oh wow, this is real at this point. I mean, these kids are really in it to go all the way.
Yeah, it was a statement game for Wilmington, being able to shut down that offense, as high scoring as it was through the year, and to be able to shut them down and just roll on to the next game.
All right, so then St. Joseph Ogden comes to Wilmington, and in a game where in those quarterfinals, it's been interesting for a number of years in the quarterfinal round and trying to get over that hump, and a St. Joseph Ogden game where, oddly enough, the state championship game came down to kicking, and that's what happened to St. Joseph Ogden in that game. 2 missed extra points for them. I think we missed 1 extra point that night.
Yep.
And it came down to them missing that last extra point. And Wilmington held on to the football, if I remember correctly, in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, 7 minutes, 22 seconds. It was a very long, good drive by the Wildcats, just to be able to hold on to the football and just drive it down the field and keep it away from St. Joe and not give them the opportunity to try to win that football game.
Yeah, and St. Joe had come so far from the beginning of the year. Those first 3 or 4 games of the season to what they were at the end of the year, kind of 2 different teams, and they'll be interesting to watch in years to come too. Then the semifinal round comes. Byron knocks off Sterling Newman in the week prior. They have to come to Wilmington, and everybody, all fired up that Sterling Newman lost, and Byron's got to come to town. And but give credit to Wilmington for coming out and just absolutely running that game from beginning to end, winning 46-13, in a game where running clock in the fourth quarter of a state semifinal game. That's pretty rare, I would think, in the state of Illinois.
A game where, if I could be wrong here, the leading receiver had 20 more yards than the leading rusher.
What's that?
I said a game where the leading receiver had 20 more yards than the leading rusher.
Yeah.
So, which is odd for Wilmington.
Yeah, it was a very interesting week. The fact that Wilmington kind of came and blew the doors off and went running away in that fourth quarter. So an interesting semifinal week. And then, of course, the trip to state. And I think the big advantage, we'll talk to Coach Reitz and the guys here in a moment, but I think the one big advantage for Wilmington was the fact that Coach Reitz and the staff from Wilmington had been there previously. And, of course, that 21-7 loss to Stillman Valley back a number of years ago. But the chance for Wilmington to kind of come in there and do things a little bit differently preparation-wise, and getting the kids down there on Thursday and choosing to go to the stadium and all those things, I think really paid dividends come game time, that they were ready and focused and ready just to go do business.
Sure, the first time you go down there, you're a little unexpected on what's going to happen. The second time, you kind of got a better idea, and I'm sure the next time they go down there, they'll have an even better idea of maybe something else they can do different. But it seemed to work.
Yeah, and then the state championship game, a crazy game that comes down to field goals. And let's see, Wilmington, you attempted 3 field goals all year, going to 2 field goals going into the state championship game. Then Jordan Sarr makes the first one, I believe a 25-yarder, and then the 31-yarder to win it. And wow, just I've imagined that, Wilmington winning the state championship more than once, but to do it on field goals was a different twist.
Hey, it's the reason he's the coach and Barry's the coach.
Oh, I've said that many times.
I'm sitting up in the end zone with Terry filming the game, and they're moving slow, and I'm like, why are they moving so slow? Come on, you got to score a touchdown here. But hey, that's why I'm up there filming and not on the field coaching.
I've said that I don't know how many times. I'll say something on broadcast, the exact opposite will happen. Well, yep, that's why I'm up here and I'm not coaching. So that kind of is the run from week 1 all the way through the state championship, and an undefeated season, and kind of a remarkable season when you think of kind of the way things went in the close games with Herscher, and then the St. Joseph Ogden game in the quarterfinals. Some games won by passing, a lot of them won by running, and then the last one won by field goals, and some pretty good defense along the way. Defense actually this year was outstanding when you consider the Monticello game, and then Williamsville coming in with their high-powered offense. I think this year the defense was really what put everything over the top. I mean, the offense was fine, but I think the defense was really what put everything over.
I agree. I mean, the offense was great too. I mean, they hit 2 rushers that were, in the top 10 for school history and rushing in the season. So you can't take away from the offense. We had some big special teams in the state game too. Kickoff return for a touchdown that really, put us ahead. But of course, they come and answer. So it was just an all around team effort, I think.
All right, so let's transition a little bit. I'll bring Coach Reitz in here if I can actually find a microphone. I think here's one. And I'll let Coach Reitz kind of join the conversation here a little bit. And Coach, first things first, I haven't had a chance to even talk to you really since the whole state championship thing happened. And first things first, just your initial thoughts on kind of everything and how it went down toward the end of that fourth quarter and using timeouts and waiting for that field goal to go through. Maybe even tell us a little bit about some of what you told us in Catbackers the other night, kind of leading up to that field goal.
Oh yeah, no problem at all. We were, first off, I think the big point was obviously everybody that was at the game or watching the game saw that Zalome had the big kickoff return. So after they score. When they come out and they want to kick off to us, they squib it. And so now we get the ball at the 40-yard line, which is, obviously we're fired up about that. We're going to have great field position here. And now let's see what we can do with it. We're able to get the ball down. Mason came through with a couple big passing plays in the our third down situations. And so now we're getting the ball down, the 25-yard line or so. We're watching the clock. The biggest thing we don't want to do at that point is give them the ball back. And especially their high-powered offense. So we're going to run the ball, and then we start saying to ourselves, well, they're loading up on run. We're not going to pass, so it's pretty simple. We're going to try to kick a field goal here. Now, how tight can we get it? We talked to Jordan on the sideline. He goes, I like it on the right hash. And you got it. And then Bobby Bolster, our special teams coach, who's been working with Jordan. That is one thing when it comes to the playoffs. You get so many more kids at practice that you can then, instead of Jordan running some scout team or doing things that way, he can just go kick the whole time. So they were zeroed in pretty good on where Jordan's range was, and he says if we can get inside the 20, we got a shot. Now the other thing too was going into the game when we went through our walkthrough at the hotel. We're outside going through our walkthrough. Boy, was it windy. Mm-hmm. So as we get into the stadium, we're trying to gauge how much wind is there. What side do you want to kick from? And with Memorial Stadium being so tall, obviously in such a big stadium, the flags up top were blowing hard, but the flags on the goalposts were not. So that went out of the mix. And then you get yourself down in a situation, and I didn't really realize what was intact because you're just always so cued in on the next play. But when I took the timeout with 4 seconds, first off, I thought I took the timeout with too much time. Mm-hmm. I should have waited to 3. But now after the timeout, you give Jordan a high five, and we got a great our special teams guys get together. They're focused on what they have to do, and to be quite honest, as a coach, you start thinking about overtime a little bit, just because if he doesn't make it. But right before his kick, there's no doubt. Boy, if he makes this would help out the situation immensely, And so, from my standpoint, from my angle, and a lot from the angle of the fans, when he first hit it, you're like, boy, did he cut it too much? And sure enough, I was looking at the referee, and when his arms went up, that was one thing, and then I got a chance to look at the clock later, and it said all zeros, and that's where I felt. Wow, it finally did happen.
Yeah, and talk a little bit too about going down on Thursday and choosing to go see the stadium ahead of time, and kind of just a few things that you learned from the last trip and using those to your advantage this trip.
No, I think it was huge. One thing we talked about after we went to state before in 2003, we felt we met after that, and we just felt rushed. We felt the whole day was rushed from the time we left the school to the time we got down to the stadium. And then the IHSA takes over, and they're telling you have to be here at this time. You have to be in the locker room. You got to be in the indoor facility, and they just keep moving. And then after the game, it's the same thing. So what our plan was, and I talked to a couple other coaches about this and went down there also, was try to get them down there the night before. Get through all of the hoopla getting down to the game, which was great. I mean, our fans were awesome. with the, as we left, everybody honking and escorts out and all that. So then we get down there Thursday. We stay in Rantoul, and we were able to then go to the stadium. And we walked the kids out to the stadium, and we weren't there long. We probably were there about 15 minutes. But I was able to walk the kids out on the field, and they were able to, hopefully get the ooh and the ah,
Right.
out of their system, meaning, wow, this is where we're playing, this and that. Where last time that was going on, I felt, as we warmed up. And so when the kids went back on Friday, it's not quite as new to them. Hey, we were here last night, we saw it, and I just felt like the whole situation was more. It slowed everything down instead of last time we felt so rushed.
Going back here a little bit earlier in the year, when did you kind of get the feeling that maybe this was a little bit different season? Like maybe you had an opportunity to do something special. I know, like we said, for me, it happened in the playoffs at Monticello. But for you, kind of, when did you see a point this year where things kind of went, I think we can actually, make some noise here?
Well, I think going into our year, and we talked about this prior to the year, that with all of our skill kids coming back, I felt that we had a chance to be good that way. We were able to run the ball and also pass the ball. But how was our offensive line going to, how are they going to mature during the season? And then as the season goes on, you play a very good Coal City team. We're able to beat them, and then we go through our season, and the other thing with luck is we're avoiding injuries. We're not having that major injury that it seems like some years that we do. But when we beat Herscher, that was one that, boy, that's pretty good. We beat a pretty good team tonight. As we walked out of that game, we didn't play outstanding the whole game, but even without us playing outstanding, we knew we walked off the field. That's a good ball club. And then my biggest one was Mantino. For us going up against Mantino, we know they're a solid team. We watched them on film during the season, just having other film that you exchange with the other conference teams and how good they were. And I think from that point on, we really got momentum and we felt really good about it. And then you go into the 3A playoffs, but we just played a ton of 4A teams.
Mm-hmm.
And so now going into the playoffs that you're not going to, nothing speed-wise is going to surprise you. Nothing hitting-wise or physicality is going to surprise you. And so probably for me it was Mantino. But the kids, I'd be honest, they improved every week. The thing I liked about what I call the Yahoos is they had fun. We were having a lot of fun, whether it be at practice. I mean, there was a time to work, but there was also a time to have fun, and they were having fun for a 14-week season. It was quick, and we talked about that per week.
Right.
How on your tough seasons, some years when you get to the playoffs, it feels like week 20. And when we got done with the state championship, I was ready. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was tired, and the grind gets you. But are we playing again this week?
Right. Because
you could have, But that's a credit to the players and to our coaching staff. And I thought our coaching staff did a great job all year. Barry particularly, I thought, did a great job calling the offense all year long. One thing about us playing good defense is, and I go back, I've said this quite a bit, is because of our double wing offense, our best defense was when Barry's running the ball and we're keeping them off the field. And, that's the best defense that I have. It's when their best quarterback or whoever's not on the field. And so I think it worked hand in hand. Like I said, though, credit goes to the kids. They did a great job. I thought we were fast. I thought we were physical all year long. I thought once you loaded up against the run to stop us, we were able to pass the ball when we wanted to. And, I thought we kind of made more of a philosophy change defensively as the year went on, to be more aggressive, to play more man coverage. And I knew when we could play Mantino man, and our kids had a great game that game. Zip had 3 interceptions. Mason did a nice job there. Our defensive line just went after their offense. I thought, coming out of that one, I thought, we could go toe-to-toe with a lot of good teams and be okay.
One thing I never really talked with you much about is moving Alex Slomi from wing back to playing an end position. Kind of thought process on that going into this year?
Well, one thing last year with the injuries that happened to us, and Hawkins had to come in and play running back. Obviously we had somewhat of a talent there in Nick, and he played great, all year. Him and Hawkins and McWilliams both were really good. And so even Zip, talked about maybe playing some end during the offseason. And then you start going to your 7-on-7s and you see, we got a 6'2", 200-pound, 6'3", 200-pound kid out there. How many guys can match up with him? And, and then you come down to the, fast forward to the Byron game, that, that number 10 that was covering him, that Zip had a real good night on. I mean, that's their best guy. And that's a matchup nightmare. And so on top of that, between him and Joe, I mean, they both take a lot of pride in their blocking. You got two kids that are real physical there, but again, you take a real good athlete and you put him at another spot. And to his credit, it didn't say a whole lot, just did his job. And obviously things worked out well for him being All-State and things along those lines. But we got as many of our athletes on the field making plays as we could.
And a little bit too about offensive and defensive lines. I know this year I can't remember, especially in 3A, teams that have been this big. I thought St. Cole City, that they were big. And then when we got to the playoffs, and was it Byron that was going like 6'4", 285 all the way across the front and playing 4-down linemen and seeing that kind of size at the 3A level to me was one thing, and then the way the guys handled it through those games was another thing.
No, our defensive front was outstanding all year, and same with their offensive front. We had to tinker around with their offensive front a little bit, and we brought out R.J. Van Dyne came up as a sophomore and solidified one of our guard positions, and did a real good job. And then we were junior oriented up front, and then the more the year went on, they solidified themselves. They got more experience. Kyle Davis was our best lineman coming back, and he was our best lineman this year and did a great job for us. But I think the thing that we were able to do both with our run game is with everybody running the spread offense, they're not used to teams, coming right at them run-wise. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to do that, and it was a situation where we were able to maybe change up things on teams and be real physical and use our speed. But like you said, when we're going up against these teams, even Williamsville, they had two huge linemen. I mean, that one tackle, they had 6'1", 290. I mean, that's good football now. And but for our kids to come out and handle them the way they did, we pride ourselves on being physical. We pride ourselves on being fast. Played for 4 quarters, and I think as the year went on, we were able to do that.
We haven't talked too much in years past about what happens when at the end of the season comes, and in this scenario, you've won as many games as you can win. You win the state championship, and then, like you said, okay, what do we do now? I mean, there's no more games. So I'll talk a little bit about that kind of end of the year meeting with the guys. And just obviously, the seniors are done, and it happens in a little bit different way, although a much more joyful occasion, the fact that you won a state championship. But still, nonetheless, they're still going to be gone next year. And a little bit kind of that mixture of emotions between winning a state championship and then all of a sudden immediately realizing that, most of the team is going to be gone.
Yeah, no, it's as happy as I was after the state game. I mean, there was a time going home on the bus that night where, I remembered, but we're saying goodbye to a bunch of great seniors. I mean, and football wise, the greatest group of seniors we've had come through. I mean, they're the ones that got the job done. And for me personally, I've been around a lot of these guys just because my relationship with Barry and being buddies with him, I've seen. Going through with Mason, coming up through Little League and everything, and a lot of these guys were on those baseball teams, so I've kind of watched them come through. But as joyous as you are, you won a state title. The tough meeting was, I think it was Tuesday, we had a meeting, and you gotta, you wish them good luck in their other sports and this and that. But I think the other thing though, you tell them too is whether you like it or not, we're married for the rest of our lives, and that's okay with me. And just whenever anybody brings up a state title in Wilmington and who won the first state title football wise, they're going to bring up 2014, and they're going to, from that point on, they could talk about any of us, any of the stories that happened, this and that, but no, there's no doubt about it. It's tough to say goodbye, but by the same token, if you're going to go out, let's go out doing it like that.
Sure. talk a little bit about these guys that are here tonight. I think we've got the 4 captains are here. So if you want to kind of introduce them a little bit, and then we'll talk to them too.
Right around the table here, our round table, is Joe Mann. Joe Mann was a captain for us, played inside linebacker for us, played offensive end for us. I said it at the all-conference meeting last week. All these guys were all conference, by the way, that one of the smartest guys I've ever coached. I think part of or a lot of our success defensively was because I could give Joe a lot. We could make checks. We could make adjustments on the field, where a lot of years I'd have to wait to halftime to make those adjustments. I could talk to Joe real quick on the field, and we could adjust on the fly. And I thought that was huge for us. But he's been a great player for us. Then you go to Mason Southall next to him. Mason had a great state game. Covered their best guy one-on-one. Had an interception. Came through third down wise for us. You could probably take Mason's career and sum it up in that state game with how he played offensively, defensively. He's great on our special teams. He's kind of the straw that stirs the drink. We got all these ingredients, but we got to have somebody bring it together. And Mason's that guy to bring it together. And how he came through on third down, I think, was huge for us this year. Really was. And then next to him is old Zippy, Alex Zalomi, all-state receiver for us. DB for us, 3-year starter for us at DB, and then we just talked about, played offensive end, was a huge asset for us that way. Physical kid, comes up and hits you, but can also cover the pass. Not only could he catch the ball at offensive end, but also he could block very well. I thought if you look at his career, he got better and better. Did battle some injuries last year. I was happy to see he come back and put those behind him and to come out and to play the way he did was outstanding. And then Kyle Davis is our offensive lineman for the last 2 years. This year we got him defensive line, just did an outstanding job. One of the most physical kids we've ever coached at Wilmington. Smart. I believe they had a call during the state game that one of their code calls would be like for sweep or something. Well, Davis picked up on that, and so they had to take a timeout and go to the sideline and say, hey, they already know our offense. And that was because of Kyle yelling to play. But very smart, knew our scheme offensively, knew what we wanted to do. Good leader for us up front, too, and very hard worker. All these guys did a great job in the weight room. A lot of these guys play multiple sports, so they would get done with that particular sport, and they would go in the weight room afterwards. And those are your special teams. Those are the ones that make it happen. And then over in the corner there watching football is my old coordinator of 21 years, Barry Southall. Like we've seen all year, he's done a great job. I'm very happy to call him a good friend of mine, and that's happened throughout all the years. And the best part, me and Barry can have at it on the sideline too a little bit, and the minute the game's over, that's over. But there's nobody better around as far as calling offenses and having a good scheme going into the game of how this is going to work. And he just sees things happen and sets up things so good for us. And not only him, but our whole staff. You start talking about a staff that me, Murph, and Bolster have been together for 21 years. And then, when you start talking to some of our other guys like Barbic, Shell, and some of them, I mean, they're there for 10, 12 years. And then we had a couple of new guys this year. Mark Languish came up and helped us out offensively, sophomore-wise. Came over from Antino, an ex-Wildcat, and he helped us out a ton. And Chad Farrell helped me out immensely on defense. And also with Barry offensively. And you could go down the line of a lot of guys, but we're very fortunate to have success at all three levels, and obviously we want to keep that going in the years coming up.
Yeah, I will say from week to week, especially with Barry's got a tough job dealing with everybody telling him, hey, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that, and for him just to stay the course, especially this year. Playoff wise, choosing the right times to pass and the right place to call and still keeping consistent with the run and all those kind of things. I firmly believe this was not only you as a staff your best year, but Barry did an outstanding job for the most part this year. And I'm the first person to be guilty of saying, what in the world's going on? But then, like Dennis and I were talking about, every time it seemed like every time I would question something, immediately something else would happen. And I would go, okay, yep,
exactly.
that's why they're down there doing their job. And it's to watch you guys year in and year out, and not only the way that you coach football and those kind of things, but the way the kids respect you, and year after year, seeing people go through the program, and then staying in contact with you and the coaching staff and everybody at Wilmington. A testament not only to the coaching skills of you and your staff, but life skills that you're also passing on to these kids.
Well, I really appreciate that. That means a lot. There's been a lot of great things that have come out of us winning a state title, and but one of the neatest things has been to see ex-players come back or email or call and just to say how happy they were for us. And like I said at our assembly after when we came home, I mean, this particular team has the medals around their neck, but boy, I wish I had 500 medals to hand out to all the kids that have come through the program. And for whatever reason, a missed field goal or a made field goal here would have changed their fortune or whatever. And they worked as hard as these guys, and for whatever reason, this year it worked out for these guys. And but for them to be as happy as they were for us, for Wilmington to win, is something that I'll never forget. And I'm still getting text messages and emails, and my phone about blew up from the St. Joe game on.
Yeah,
it was after every game, my phone just went whoosh. And but that's the neat part about it. And that we'll have lasting memories, not just with this group, but when you talk to a lot of ex-Wildcat groups, you got a lot of great stories. And what's neat for me now is we're getting a lot of those ex-players are coming back, teaching and coaching for us, and so that's really good to see that. Hopefully, we made a positive influence. But as a coach, there's always an immediate, immediately with that team football-wise, if you had an impact.
Right.
But 20 years down the road is when you really realize, when I'm talking to guys, hey, I'm doing well job-wise. Hey, I got a couple kids in the family. Everything's going great. Or even, you might run into a kid, hey, it's a little tough right now, but I'm going to turn around and come back. And, that's what you want to see, and it's very satisfying.
All right, Coach, we're going to let some of these guys get in on the action here.
I can't wait to hear this. This is outstanding.
So the four captains are sitting at our round table here. So let's just start on this side. So Joe Mann and Mason Southall, you can just give them those two microphones. You're going to have to hold those mics pretty close, by the way. They're kind of touchy as to how they pick things up here. But first things first, chance for you guys to go downstate for the first time since 2003. My memory is terrible.
Yep.
Since 2003. And you get downstate, get to the U of I, and I know Coach took you over there and you saw everything the night before. For you guys, what was your first thought? Well, first of all, I heard the story about how you guys got into the U of I on Thursday night. But what was your first thought getting in there and kind of being in that environment and seeing what you're going to be playing the next day?
Well, just being able to take it in the night before makes it so much easier the next day, because I don't know, it's something you don't get to do every day. So to be able to play at such a big stage, just to be able to take it in the night before and not have to worry about, what is new to come the next day makes it that much easier.
And for me, I know Coach was talking about going over there on Thursday, and the fact that it was just the gate was wide open and they just kind of wandered in and wandered onto the field, and a chance to kind of be out there. Did anybody ever question you guys or say anything, or did you just go in and go out?
There was no one there, so we walked into the tunnel and we were trying to find like an opening to go up in the stands and like look at the field, but then I saw some people in front of me just turn to the right, and you can tell that the gate was wide open because they just started running through the tunnel, and then we were right there on the field to where you run in through when you like go to the game. So we got to go stand like on the sideline, but Coach still would not let us go onto the field, the actual part of the field, because he didn't want us being on the field and someone coming and seeing and we getting yelled at. So
yeah, it's so weird that it would just be wide open. You think so much secure, nobody wants to get in there, but yeah, it's just kind of an interesting a little twist to that whole story. But kind of leading up before we actually talk about state championship weekend, for you guys, an undefeated season and a chance to play a lot of very tough opponents. I know some people said it was one of the tougher schedules in the state for 3A. Do you think playing, Coal City, Manteno, and some of those teams really prepared you for those later round of the playoffs? I know St. Joseph Ogden and then Williamsville at the end. Do you feel playing those tougher kind of conference type opponents set the table for you guys going in for playoff wise?
I mean,
either one of you.
Yeah, it's always good to beat a good team. Like when you beat a good team, because some teams you go in and everybody expects this is going to be a blowout, whereas other teams they come to watch because they know how close it's going to be. And when you beat teams like that, it does help for the following weeks, because then you do have that confidence boost knowing that we just played such a good team that we should fare well against the next ones too.
For you personally, what for the first 9 weeks outside of the playoffs, so the regular season, what was the one game to you where you thought, hey, I think we've got something going here, or an opponent that you guys handle that you felt like, hey, I think we're for real now?
Yeah, I'd say Manteno, just because at that point we're trying to get to our perfect regular season, and last year we lost in week 8, so we were at that same point, like we were coming close. And with Manteno, just like before the game, coach was all nervous, walking around, pacing, and us as a team, we just kind of sat back and laughed at him, because it's easier to play when you're not nervous. So once we got through that game, and we felt good playing in that game, so once we got through that, I think we thought we had a pretty good chance to make it somewhere.
Now, both of you guys kind of play both ways a little bit, especially you, Mason, playing pretty much every down, even special teams, because you're long snapping as well. Kind of going through a game from beginning to end and having to play every single down. Is there ever a moment or a time where, I guess, maybe kickoffs where you have a chance to kind of take a deep breath or relax for 1 second, or is it just full blast for the entire game?
I mean, even when I'm on the sideline, like I'm not on kickoff or kickoff return. I mean, I still want to get in the game. Like once you start playing every down of every game, you don't want to stop. You know what I mean? Like even when I go sit on the kickoff, like I wish I was on the kickoff team. I wish I was on the kickoff return team, because once you start doing that, you never want to stop. There
you go. You could have done what Alex did over there. Put you back there in a state championship game and have a return a kick. So for you, offensive now, obviously quarterback, big position on offense, and then you play defense as well. Which one do you enjoy playing more? Is there one you like playing more than the other?
I mean, coming into the season, I probably would have said that quarterback was my favorite, but after the season, I don't know, honestly. I like playing both of them.
Is sometimes it's more of a challenge to play defensively, especially if you're out there kind of one-on-one and it's just on your shoulders?
Well, I mean, this sounds kind of weird, but I like it better being one-on-one, like not worrying about like switch alerts or anything. Like I always ask my coach if I could just be on the best receiver and just guard him before every week. I love doing it. I don't know why. I'll
say the two of you, so outside of Zlomi, Joe here caught quite a few passes this year and was a part of that offense. Talk a little bit about kind of the two of you, or maybe you guys as a group, on working on kind of becoming a better unit passing wise. Is that something that you guys worked on coming into this year, try and become more of a unit as far as quarterback kind of receiver?
Yeah. Towards the beginning of the season, after every practice, we go to the field and I'd work on routes with mostly just these two all the time. So we get our timing down on all the routes. And believe it or not, the two routes we ran in the state final game, we practiced all over the summer, all the time, some 80 and 100. It was what they're called. Mm-hmm. But we did not run them in a single game until the state final game, not one single game. And then we finally ran them. And I guess all the practice paid off. So
how was it? State championship game, you played the first half, it's 3-0, which I don't think probably anybody there expected it to be 3-0 at the half. And even third quarter, it seemed like, okay, there's not really the whole, I mean, it's a good game, but there's not a whole lot of points and stuff going on. Then all of a sudden, fourth quarter, boom, and everything just kind of happens in 10 minutes. What kind of your thoughts, highs and lows going through you guys score and then they would answer and just kind of one big play after another?
Well, after the first half, I think a lot of us were, even though we were up 3-0, I think a lot of us were disappointed because we have such high expectations for ourselves that we knew that we should have been doing better because of how well we were driving. So coming into the third quarter, we wanted to continue that, but actually score instead of whatever, turning the ball over. But then Wilmington, we've always been a fourth quarter team, so I think we were ready for it completely.
Yeah, it was and the way kind of things happened. You get a kickoff return from Alex there, who hasn't returned kicks all year. A screen pass for Williamsville goes for a touchdown. You had the field goal to win the game. Kind of every possible scenario that you could have in one game, kind of all thrown in there in the fourth quarter. And that last drive, you get the ball back with 5-6 minutes, almost 6 minutes on the clock, I think. You go all the way down the field. At what point, this is just me personally wanting to know this, but at what point did the thought process turn to, okay, we just need to work this clock, get a few more yards, and we're going to try a field goal? Did it just kind of morph into that, or?
With about 2 minutes left, I come into the huddle, and all my linemen are like, "Come on, we gotta go, And I'm like thinking, just patience. My dad always says, patience, just relax. So I'd say with a minute left and we were on the 20-yard line, I kind of realized like we threw the ball once, and I was like, we were getting 2 yards, 1 yard. I was like, we're gonna throw here if we're gonna like go for the end zone or call a play, and we called just a normal play, and then we realized that we were going for a field goal.
Yeah, and for you guys too, having to throw the football, especially on that last, I think 2 passes for first down on the last drive. I think there was one earlier in the drive, and then one a little bit later. And being able to go to that and relying on that to pick up the first down, for us, especially in the press box, impressive of the fact that just having to pass, being kind of, I guess, in that moment and taking advantage of the situation, and then getting not only from your end of throwing the ball, but everybody receiving during the day. You ended up, what was it, 7 of 9 for the day? So selective in pass plays that were called, and then being able to execute when that time came up. And not only that, but the weeks prior, where there were some unbelievable catches by Alex and some of the other guys on the team to turn stuff around. The passing game this year really seemed like it stepped up a level. And for us, it was interesting that was something that you could go to on the line when it mattered and be able to execute, especially that last drive.
I mean, I give credit to my offensive line because we practice pass blocking probably more than any other team, even though we're a full run team all the time. Like that's what we go over in the summer, run block on our basic plays, and then towards the middle of the season, we focused on pass block. We had JV come up, and we just did not 11 on 11, but just all passing. So we really focus on that during the season, so we are able to do it in games.
Do those 7-on-7s too during the summer? Is that something that you feel like kind of ups your game every year working on that, or is that something completely different from what you actually end up doing?
I mean, it's actually completely different. What I think it helps you on is the timing you get down with your receivers, like when you know they're going to cut, where they're going to run their routes, how long they're going to be. Mm-hmm. Like you get to know your receivers. But it's actually completely different with people blocking and rushing. You got to move throughout the pocket.
But Joe, I know defensively, we love watching you play defense this year. Not only you, but Alex and all the guys playing defense. But it seemed like when a big play needed to happen or a big hit needed to happen, you somehow find yourself in the right position to kind of make some plays happen. Defensively for you this year, what did you work on kind of from last year to this year to kind of make yourself a better player defensively?
Well, I think off season has a lot to do with everything. So we, as a team, as soon as we lost last year, we were asking coach, when can we get back in the weight room? When can we start back up? Because a lot of us went from being 3-sport athletes to 2. So we have that time to, do our off-season stuff. And then, coach is big on defense. And so a lot of time we spend more time on defense than we do offense, which he gets caught up, and he'll tell Coach Southall that, all right, you'll get your time. Let us get our stuff done first. But I think it came down to just playing assignment football, whereas if each guy didn't do what they were supposed to, then the plays wouldn't have been made.
Well, and that was even bigger this year because you saw so many different kinds of offenses, everything from the option a couple of weeks to spread offense and everything else. And going from staying on assignments to being able to drop back into pass coverage and all that kind of stuff. It was such an interesting season because you saw everything from week 1 to week 14.
Yeah, sometimes it gets sort of hectic because we do put in so many different defenses, but like I said, we rep it so many times that it just comes a second nature. To whereas once we got into the playoffs, we think, all right, well, this offense is like the other team that we played earlier in the season, and you already know what defense we're going to run. So that did help. And I mean, it's always fun to play all sorts of offenses because then, we get a feel for which one we like the most. So some kids will get excited saying, yeah, it's spread this week. That means I can make some bigger plays in the backfield. And then other weeks it's, they're kind of heavy on the run, so we can stack more kids in the box and get different personnel on defense. So,
well, it's fun watching both of you two guys, and we'll kind of shift attention here a little bit to the other two captains and Alex and Kyle over here. And first of all, Kyle, playing line both ways, and this year we were talking with Coach Reitz, such big. I mean, for the size schools that you guys are playing, and 400 or 500 kids in the school, such big lines both ways. Not only Coal City, but Byron, Williamsville had a couple of big kids. Where do you think was your? I mean, obviously not the biggest line Wilmington has ever had, but where do you see your advantage, kind of going against those bigger teams week in and week out?
I would think it would have to be speed and physicality, honestly, more than anything, because it's hard for bigger guys to block smaller guys. It's always been like that. I mean, you're faster than them. You can move quicker than them. So, yeah.
There's a few times this year, too, that some of these teams went more towards cut blocking style. And that what was that? I was trying to think of the week that they went to that we were talking about that in Catbackers. And for some reason, my memories, obviously, like I said before, terrible. But I was trying to remember that the one week that Coach was talking about cut blocking a little bit more than usual. Was it Monticello? How do you deal? Obviously, it's borderline illegal type of play. But how do you deal with teams that kind of attack you from that mentality as opposed to just straight up?
I'd have to say you just have to read it more, and you have to just play smart, play fast, and do your assignment.
Alex, kind of a crazy year for you, especially you get to a state championship game. You get to return a kick for first time all year. I don't think there was another time.
I think that was the first time I was back on a return since sophomore year.
Yeah, and such a crazy time because I don't think any of us really we just kind of assumed, okay, it's the same two guys back there. And then when you caught the ball, I'm like, is that Salome with the football? And then all of a sudden you just take off, and next thing we know it's a touchdown. Kind of your thoughts from going out there for kick return to after the touchdown, and kind of what happened in that time span.
Going out there, I mean, I was tired. It's fourth quarter. I was like, all right. At first, I was just thinking, try and get a good return, run it where it's supposed to. But then after I broke through at the beginning, kind of shoved Hawkins out of the way. But after I got through that, I was like, all right, now I'm getting somewhere. And then I just tried to break tackles. I don't know. It wasn't my set plan, but I just tried to go with it.
And then after that, Dennis, we were talking too later, like, boy, that's borderline getting excessive So I mean, obviously
Yeah,
not going to
there's
throw
no
a flag on
for
that.
excessive
But
celebration. That was
the gigantic
very
pile of
close,
people
but-
in the end zone was kind of interesting to watch after all that happened too.
Yeah. I was planning on getting up, but then I guess everyone else had a different plan, and that's what I was thinking at the bottom. At the bottom, I'm like, hey, we got to get up. I'm not about to just get yelled at for getting
Right.
a personal foul on a touchdown. But I was honestly surprised when I got up that there wasn't a flag for that.
For you too, such a different. You go from playing wing back last year to now going to end, and of course playing defense too. Your transition from one to the other, how much different is it going from playing wing back to playing end for you?
It was different. I mean, like even in the beginning, I was just trying to figure out who to block because I mean it's sort of different on that line, and then especially going when we go wide, having to check with the official, make sure I'm on the line instead of usually being back. But it was sort of just an easy transition. It wasn't too difficult.
You know, I've never talked to anybody either. We have the 4 captains here tonight. Outside of coin toss and all that kind of thing, what goes into? I guess both of you can kind of speak to this. What goes into being a captain, kind of day in day out on this football team?
I think it just you have to practice hard so that other people look up to you. So, I mean, you need to practice hard so then they follow behind you. They practice hard. You have to be serious, and that's the toughest part, I think, playing and being a captain is trying to get everyone serious to play.
When does that process actually when do they assign captains? Is it real early on?
Not really. It's sort of based on like how our off season goes, like our off season training in the weight room, who really steps up and sort of leads everyone else. And the coaches usually pick one of the captains, and then the others are voted on by the players on who you thought really stepped up. And that's usually towards the end of our winter training in the spring. That's when that kind of happens.
And then as a group of captains, not only for practice and all that kind of thing, but then game time comes around, and obviously it's your job to kind of keep everything in line as we go forward. But talk a little bit about playing, because I know this year I think might have actually been one of the years where there weren't as many. We had 5 or 6 playing both ways, I think. And some years it's been more. Talk a little bit about what it's like to play both ways. I know some of the smaller teams in the state kind of demand that, but how, like being in shape and those kind of things, what goes into having to play both ways?
Well, I think there's a lot of like mental aspect to it on knowing what to do on each side of the ball and all the different formations and stuff. But then one thing I found out playing here is that conditioning is not a problem. They make sure to run you enough in practice so you're all right during the games. But I think the hardest part for some people is like knowing what to do on each side for all the various things that can happen either way.
And then Kyle too, online either way. I know injury-wise, not very much this year, except for I think Kyle Hall getting injured toward was that
St. Joe.
Yeah, St. Joe. I was going to say toward the end of the year. Trying to kind of switch guys in, and I know you've had a couple of switches on the line more towards the beginning of the year.
Line,
yeah,
offensive line, yeah.
So what goes into that as a group? Because I know that group has to work together, obviously, as one all the time. So kind of what goes into making those changes, and how do you adjust moving forward?
I think the toughest part would be trying to bond with them, because when you're in the huddle, you guys are your brothers. So I mean, bonding with them is probably the toughest part, because practice, you're with them, you're always with them. You're married to them, basically, like Coach Reen says.
Sure. And for you guys too, now that season's over, and it's a weird feeling for us, but I'm sure for you guys as well, because you get to the end of the year, you won a state championship, you just got done playing football, and then you go, okay, what do we do now? I mean, we just won. Is there anything else we need to do? And you're just kind of state champions. So talk a little bit about that, kind of going from that high of winning a state championship and you're kind of on top of the world to now, literally next day hey, it's all over, and kind of how do you deal with that and moving forward here?
It's really tough. I mean, I was looking forward to practice Monday, but I mean, we don't. I had wrestling practice, but I'd have to say that just not seeing your teammates, not seeing your coaches, especially the sport you love, it's tough.
And you guys, who in here plays another sport? All of you?
Yeah.
So anybody play basketball in here? Yeah. All right. So Alex, so you go from football to basketball immediately.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming completely different training wise and all that kind of thing to go from football to then being ready for basketball.
Yeah, I mean, we won the state game Friday, and then Monday after school was basketball practice. It was a little different, especially conditioning wise, and just a completely different sport you have to adapt to on the fly. But I don't know. I like it just because it's something to keep doing, another sport to play.
Right, sure. And so all of you play another sport? What do you guys?
Basketball and baseball.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, you said basketball. So two of you play baseball too. It's anytime you have a smaller school like this, seeing everybody play multiple sports. I know that's kind of going away now. There's a lot of schools where, hey, we're only going to focus on one sport. The coaches here encourage you guys to play multiple sports as opposed to one.
Yeah, they do. Coach Murph's my wrestling and my lineman coach, and he says wrestling will get you better for football. Football will get you better for wrestling. So, yeah, they definitely want us to do multiple sports.
Yeah, it seems like year in and year out, there's quite a few guys that play multiple sports, and even at some of these smaller schools, so many guys going to one sport. We're only going to play baseball all year or basketball all year. It's interesting to see a group of you guys playing more sports and kind of and working on various things, because to be honest, that's going away. It's refreshing to see you guys playing multiple sports.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just starting to focus on one sport that they like, but a lot of our coaches and parents, they all played multiple sports, and they just know that we're good enough athletes to do all and just to transition into them. So, and they say it keeps us out of trouble. So it just, I don't know, and it helps out all our other teams because you can just keep all your athletes going year round.
Well, thanks to all you guys for coming out tonight. I know Barry's over there, and we appreciate him coming tonight, and Coach Reentz, and then you captains as well. Wow, what a crazy season to go from 1 week to the end and have it come down to field goals, and first state championship in Wilmington history, and wow, just one of those years where I'm sure you guys will be talking about this forever. And like Dennis said, when you get 20 years from now and Alex is going to say, yeah, I ran that kickback 108 yards. And Jordan Saar's kick is going to be from 40 yards into a 50-mile-an-hour wind. And those stories will grow. But it's a pleasure not only from us, but the town of Wilmington as well, seeing you guys grow as a team and winning state championship and bringing one back to Wilmington. And it was a pleasure for us to watch all that and kind of witness you guys do that with class and respect that some other teams in the state haven't done in the past. So it's nice to see you guys do that, and I guess go forward with the town of Wilmington being presented proudly. So we appreciate that from all you guys for sure. Well, I think we were going to do what an hour, and we've slightly gone over that, so we're not too bad. We're a little good here. But Dennis, some kind of closing thoughts on the way the season kind of culminated in a state championship down in Champaign, and a crazy game, and winning a game with a field goal, and everybody going, yes, we won the state championship, and now we get to play next year.
Right. It was just a crazy year. Just unexpected at first, and then as we started rolling, it was like, hey, this is this is our year. This is it, and just the way things fell. And then, like you said, you couldn't ask for a better football game at the end with the with the final game.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I'd rather have us win by 3 touchdowns, and so I'm not freaking out so much at the end. But you know, as games go, that will be a game that everybody in this town remember. I mean, I even have people at work who don't even watch high school football who are like, "You guys won with a field goal in the last
Right.
couple of seconds. I read it in the paper. I saw a highlight on TV or on the internet or somewhere." So it's something that, I mean, more than just the town of Wilmington. I mean, everybody.
Well, the 2014 season comes to a close. Wilmington wins their first state championship, and now moving on to other sports, and of course football again next year. But this group here, obviously, that football career is done, and the seniors move on. And we welcome in the class from next year to work towards another state championship. But wow, what a group of seniors! And truly, I mean, there's been other Wilmington teams in the past where there's been a couple of more kind of star athletes, and the team has revolved around them. But this year, just a real group, a real team of guys who kind of worked together toward a goal all year.
Yeah, it was. It worked out great. And then something, I don't know if you remember, we did a pre-show this year. Remember? And remember, we were sitting here, and I said, "What record do you have the Wildcats at?" And you said, "For just the conference. We just did the conference. You did 8-1. What did I pick?"
Yeah.
9-0.
Fine. He can glow. I'll take it. Okay, I'll take it. I was wrong. You win. We're gonna wrap things up here. We'll let these guys eat some pizza and watch some. Hey, what's that score over there? Wow, Georgia Tech's winning. Oh, I hope
It's not the end of the game yet.
We'll wrap things up here tonight. Congratulations to the 2014 Wilmington Wildcats on winning the first state championship in school history. We will wrap things up for this tonight. And of course, you can be back with us for more of our coverage throughout the year, and then football as we get going next year too. So thanks, Jeff, for your work and kind of putting all this stuff together, and Dennis and all these guys for coming out and joining us here tonight. You've been listening to the 2014 Wilmington Wildcats season review right here on the Christian Internet Sports Network.